I think I'll put facts only. Most of the things everybody, I presume that they know what is myocardial perfusion imaging. And what we have to do, this topic, what is assigned is evaluation of stress myocardial perfusion imaging in silent atherosclerotic lesions. It mostly focused to radionuclide stress MPI. The myocardial perfusion imaging has served as a clinical mainstay in the management of patients with known or suspected coronary artery disease for more than 4 decades. It is since 1974 with the thallium imaging for myocardial perfusion. The MPI provides information beyond the mere detection of disease, basically delineates the extent, severity, and location of perfusion abnormalities. These data also have important prognostic implications. I think the prognostic implications and the informations are much more in the published literature. And this assists in providing reassurance to the clinician and patient or suggest the need for additional therapies. However, the role of MPI among asymptomatic patients is less defined, that you have atherosclerosis, you are asymptomatic, and when to really screen them with the MPI patient is less defined than among those with active symptoms. Coming to the clinical risk assessment, which is much more important. Once you assess clinically and the assessment forms the basis for risk stratification and the intensity of medical management for asymptomatic patients. A number of global risk scores are available for use with an aggregation of an array of traditional and novel risk factors into a composite score estimating major adverse cardiovascular event. In US, mostly this is. There have also been alteration to this type of testing approach, like with a tiered approach, by initially performing a lower cost scans with just a scout view and getting the calcium score, then followed by selective myocardial perfusion imaging with evidence of significant CSE, that is from the multimodality imaging. If the CSE calcium score is between 100 to 400, they are the most ideal group to really screen, or more than 400 in the Agatston score of calcium scoring. Coming to the clinical risk and guidelines, what should be this is basically based on appropriate use criteria. The American College of Cardiology, AHA, Heart Association, and American Society of Nuclear Cardiology combined together have published a guideline in 2003 regarding the clinical use of cardiac radionuclide imaging, which stated that it is not clear that detecting asymptomatic preclinical CAD with therapeutic intervention will reduce the risk beyond that indicated by risk factor profiling and currently recommended strategies to reduce risk actually. And however, these guidelines do suggest that in some asymptomatic patients, testing may be appropriate when there is a high risk of clinical situations, which already people have enumerated also in this meeting. Recently, the 2010 American College of Guideline and AHA guideline for assessment of cardiovascular risk in asymptomatic adults suggests a severe restriction of the use of stress imaging, potentially limiting its applications to diabetics and the peripheral vascular disease and other autoimmune diseases, which I will come later on. These later guidelines are more focused on population trends rather than evaluation of individual patients. So according to the most recent American College of Cardiology guidelines and combined together ASNC and AHA, the use of myocardial perfusion imaging should be based on coronary heart disease risk in patients without an antecedent diagnosis of ischemic heart disease. Among patients at low risk, SPECT or PET, whatever you do, either a single photon emission computerized tomography or the PET scan imaging is inappropriate, while testing will be appropriate once you categorize them into the risk category. Patients with an intermediate coronary heart disease risk with an uninterpretable ECG are deemed to be uncertain, whereas an interpretable ECG would be inappropriate. Furthermore, MPI would be appropriate when the calcium score, which I have already told, either 400 or when 100 to 400 Agatston score if the patient is at coronary heart disease risk, high coronary heart disease risk. If a prior MPI study was performed prior to 2 years repeat testing in an asymptomatic patient is inappropriate. That means it should not be done in the follow-up. If you think that after a year, because there is a guideline which says that after a year it is 1.2 to 1.3 risk with the diabetics, then you have to repeat the study. No, it is inappropriate for repeating the study at that juncture. Coming to the coronary heart disease risk equivalents, patients with medical condition that portend a similar cardiovascular risk to those with established coronary heart disease represents an ideal asymptomatic population to discuss the role of myocardial perfusion imaging. This RMPI is basically regional radionuclide myocardial perfusion imaging. So let's not get confused. It is myocardial perfusion imaging with a radionuclide. Conditions including diabetes mellitus, other atherosclerotic disease, peripheral arterial disease, abdominal aortic aneurysm, carotid artery disease, and carotid disease, and a 20% 10-year risk of coronary heart disease by Framingham projections have long been identified as coronary heart disease risk equivalents and accepted as indications to justify the screening and subsequently aggressive therapies, screening with MPI and subsequently aggressive therapy. This is a table to show regarding the appropriate scores. The I is if you have 7 to 9 scores, that is the appropriate. Otherwise, they are in the range of 0 to 3 is inappropriate, and there are 3 to 5 is uncertain. And these are the list of where you can see that the high CSD risk is with the appropriate score of 7, and sometimes intermediate coronary heart disease is uncertain, which is 5. So the question comes now, if you have an appropriate score and you screen, or uncertain you can screen, you can see here that with the Agatston score that you can screen, there is an Agatston score between 100 to 400 is appropriate score, that is 7, and Agatston score between 100 to 400 is uncertain. But still you can screen these two groups, and Agatston greater than 400, these three groups. If somebody is utilizing multimodality imaging, that the CT angio and the myocardial perfusion imaging together, and then you can do that mode, and you can screen them and go to MPI. This is called a tiered approach, where you can pick up, the yield will be much better. Coming to the condition diabetes mellitus, there are 2-3 studies earlier in the almost around 20 years back. One is a DIAD study, and another is a study from Italy. Both have the big studies. Abnormal MPI. This recruited around the DIAD study around 120 patients, and it has been shown in the literature that abnormal myocardial perfusion imaging has been found in 21% to 60%. That depends upon the risk category of diabetes, whether the duration of diabetes, HbA1c level. The DIAD study include HbA1c level of 7.5 maximum, and asymptomatic diabetic patients with 15% to 20% of asymptomatic diabetes having high risk findings. That means perfusion abnormality or transient ischemic defect, or you can see from these balanced ischemia, from this you can get around 15 to 20% of asymptomatic diabetes which have high risk findings like perfusion abnormalities, multiple perfusion abnormalities in different territory of the SPECT scans or PET scans, and furthermore, they will straight go to angiography. Furthermore, traditional and emerging cardiac risk factors were not associated with abnormal. Coming to the atherosclerotic vascular disease, I have already enumerated peripheral arterial disease, and the atherosclerotic abdominal aortic, the carotid and carotid disease. These are considered as coronary heart disease risk equivalents. And the peripheral arterial disease is associated with a 20% to 60% increased risk of MI and 2 to 6-fold increased risk of coronary heart disease mortality. While it is unknown whether screening MPI in patients with extracardiac disease will lead to changes in treatment or improve outcome, the high-risk population with established atherosclerotic vascular disease represents an ideal population to pursue for further study to fully determine the role of MPI. In fact, it is always a dictum that if you have peripheral vascular disease or anything, you have to screen first the peripheral vascular disease so that you may get also the includes the coronary artery disease to reduce the perioperative modality prior to surgical operation also in these patients. Coming to the autoimmune disease, there is a significant increase in the incidence of coronary artery disease in patients with certain autoimmune inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis and SLE. Although MPI has been found to be a useful method to identify subclinical coronary artery disease in patients with systemic lupus erythematosus, scant literature defining a role of MPI in patients with autoimmune inflammatory diseases is available. This requires further studies. Coming to the chronic kidney disease, because of the accelerated atherosclerosis, asymptomatic subjects with CKD have an intermediate likelihood of having occurred CAD. That's why we always screen the group in MPI with the intermediate group of the coronary artery disease, neither the high risk nor the low risk, because high risk will directly go for catheterization and the low risk will be followed. And coming to the MPI, has been shown to have an excellent diagnostic accuracy and independent prognostic value in these patients. However, the comparative effectiveness, cost effectiveness of MPI in asymptomatic subjects with a CKD is still unknown. Coming to HIV, no data is presently available to support the use of MPI for detection of occult coronary artery in asymptomatic HIV infected patients, although certain anti-HIV medication may increase the risk of cardiac events. Coming to the functional impairment, while there is no clear evidence that screening MPI in patients with reduced functional capacity leads to improved outcome, this high-risk population deserves further study to determine the role of risk stratification with MPI. To the last, erectile dysfunction among men referred to for MPI testing. Erectile dysfunction has been shown to be a strong predictor of severe coronary heart disease and high-risk MPI findings even after adjusting for traditional risk factors. Based on this available evidence, a recent expert panel has been concluded that stress testing, including MPI, should be considered in men with erectile dysfunction who are deemed to be at high risk based on the presence of additional cardiovascular risk factors, while large outcome studies will be required to fully determine this function. Coming to the conclusion, there is a robust medical evidence supporting the use of MPI for the diagnostic evaluation and risk assessment of symptomatic patients with known or suspected ischemic heart disease. Yet, in general, similar literature is yet to be available in plenty for asymptomatic individuals. However, the quantitative PET studies to show the global myocardial perfusion, all these are also available, but they are still in the continuing stage, however evolving also. However, the underlying physiologic assessment of coronary blood flow and its potential to impact on patient management should be similar. Clinical risk assessment is the key with regards to applying MPI for the evaluation of asymptomatic individuals. Like you saw that the genetic familial predispositions, all these patients also can be put forward provided at the right time and whether they are not high risk, although the exact method of risk determination remains unclear. In many settings, a tiered approach to clinical evaluation is warranted with a risk determination and possibly other testing such as calcium scoring preceding the MPI. Beyond the determination of overall clinical risk, certain subgroups of asymptomatic patients warrant special attention and a consideration of MPI, such as those with a family history of premature coronary heart disease. Coronary arterial disease risk equivalents such as peripheral vascular disease, erectile dysfunctions, and impaired functional capacity may benefit from MPI testing. Thank you very much for patient listening.